He opened the wrong door, and his world stopped. A black beauty stood halfway dressed, her eyes locking on his with fire and disbelief. Adrian Pierce, a man who commanded boardrooms, could only stand frozen, unable to look away, and unable to forget the woman he thought he'd lost forever. It was Selena. The door clicked shut behind him, but Adrian didn't move. The soft golden light from the vanity wrapped around her like it was made for her skin. Emerald silk clung to one shoulder, the other bare, the zipper of her gown halfway up. The scent of jasmine and something warmer, something familiar, curled through the air, uninvited and unstoppable. Selena's hands froze mid-motion, one clutching the fabric to her chest. Her gaze found him in the mirror first, sharp and steady, before she turned to face him. "Adrian," she said, his name tasting like a warning on her tongue. He had imagined hearing her voice again, but never like this. "I didn't." His words died in his throat. The last time he'd seen her, she was walking away from him, her heels clicking down the marble steps of his penthouse. He had told himself that if she ever looked back, he wouldn't be standing there waiting. And yet, "You haven't changed," she said, her tone a strange mix of surprise and disdain. "I could say the same," he replied, eyes betraying him as they swept over her. She didn't flinch. Instead, she turned back to the mirror, her fingers finding the zipper again, deliberately slow, as though daring him to look away. "You didn't? Do you always walk into women's dressing rooms uninvited, or is this a new hobby?" she asked. "I was looking for the lounge," he said quietly. "I didn't know you'd be here." Her laugh was soft but without warmth. "And yet here you are." The air between them thickened, heavy with everything unsaid, the arguments, the choices, the years. Adrian took one step closer, just enough for her reflection to sharpen in the mirror. "I'm not leaving until we talk," he said. Selena's hand stilled on the zipper. She met his eyes in the glass, and a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. "Then you might hear something you're not ready for." The door shut behind him with a muted click, a sound that seemed far too quiet for the hurricane it unleashed in his chest. Adrian Pierce stood just inside, his fingers still resting on the brass handle as if he could rewind the moment by simply letting go. But he didn't. The golden glow from the vanity wrapped around her like a second skin. Selena. Emerald silk draped over her figure, the zipper halfway up, the fabric clinging where it caught the light. One bare shoulder gleamed, warm brown against the rich green. She stood before the mirror, her curls tumbling in perfect, careless spirals, framing a face he had memorized but tried to forget. Her perfume, jasmine, with that elusive warmth he'd never identified, drifted toward him. It was the same she'd worn that night years ago when everything between them had fractured. In the mirror, her eyes found his first, sharp, startled but steady. Slowly, deliberately she turned. "Adrian." His name landed like a slap and a caress in one. He swallowed. "Selena." Her gaze flicked over him, the tailored charcoal suit, the cufflinks, the faint shadow of stubble he hadn't had time to shave before the gala. He wondered if she noticed the way his chest rose faster, the way his grip tightened on the doorframe. "I was looking for the lounge," he said at last, the lie tasting sour. "And you found me instead." Her tone was calm, almost detached, but the way she clutched the gown's bodice a little tighter told him her calm was rehearsed. "I didn't know you'd be here." Her laugh was soft but there was no warmth in it. "You never do, Adrian. You never see me until I'm standing in front of you." The words cut deeper than he expected. "You think I haven't?" He stopped himself, jaw tightening. This wasn't the place. Not yet. Selena turned back to the mirror. The slow rasp of the zipper filled the silence. She pulled it upward, each inch closing the gap between vulnerability and armor. He took a step closer. "Selena, I don't." Her voice was steady, but her reflection betrayed her, the faintest tremor in her fingers. "You don't get to walk in here after all this time and start with that voice you use in boardrooms when you want something." "What if I'm not here for something?" he asked. She met his eyes in the glass. "Then why are you still here?" The question landed heavy. He could tell her the truth, that the moment he saw her, the years had fallen away, the boardroom walls, the deals, the endless grind of his empire, none of it mattered. That she was the only person who had ever made him feel like a man instead of a machine. But he didn't. "Not yet." "Because there's something I need to know," he said instead. Selena's lips curved, not quite a smile. "And you think I'm just going to hand it to you here in a dressing room?" He stepped forward again, close enough that the soft notes of her perfume deepened. "You owe me that much." Her laugh this time was real, low, rich and almost sad. "Oh, Adrian, if you think I owe you anything, Then you've forgotten a lot more than my face. She turned, finally facing him fully, her hand still clutching the silk at her chest. For the first time he saw something flicker in her eyes, not just anger but a shadow of something else. Before he could name it, a sharp knock rattled the door. 5 minutes to curtain, a voice called from the hallway. Selena's gaze didn't leave his. You should go. I'm not leaving. Her chin lifted. Then be ready, Adrian. Because once this door opens again, you might hear something you can't take back. The knock came again, louder this time. Adrian's hand tightened on the doorframe. Try me. Selena's lips parted as if to speak, but the doorknob began to turn. The metal latch clicked. The door swung open just enough for a young woman in a headset and sleek black dress to peek in. Oh, sorry? Mr. Pierce, Miss Taylor, they're asking everyone to the main floor. The auction's about to begin. Adrian didn't move. Neither did Selena. The assistant's smile faltered at the invisible current between them. She shifted, opening the door a little wider. I'll just wait outside. Selena stepped back, letting the green silk settle fully over her frame. When she turned toward the mirror, she reached for a thin diamond clasp on the table, fastening it at her waist. Her fingers were steady now, as though she'd flipped some hidden switch that transformed her from the woman in the dressing room into the woman meant to be seen. Adrian knew that switch. He'd watched her use it at cocktail parties at his corporate galas years ago. It was armor disguised as grace. She swept past him toward the hallway. He caught the faintest brush of her perfume as she passed, and for a second, he thought she might look back. She didn't. In the hallway, the hum of the ballroom grew louder, clinking glasses, low chatter, the swell of strings from the live quartet. Crystal chandeliers blazed above, casting gold light over guests in gowns and tuxedos. Selena blended into the crowd instantly, her emerald gown catching the light as she moved with the poise of someone who belonged here. Adrian followed, his gaze fixed on her, ignoring the greetings from associates and shareholders. At the far side of the room, she stopped near a display pedestal, a silk-covered mannequin wearing an intricate black evening dress. The small plaque at its base read, Selena Taylor, exclusive auction piece. He stared at it, then at her. You're the designer? She met his gaze with the faintest smirk. Surprised? I didn't know you were designing again. That's because you never asked. Her voice was calm, but the undercurrent was sharp. Before he could answer, the MC's voice boomed through the speakers, calling everyone's attention to the stage. The crowd shifted, pulling them forward. Adrian stayed beside her as the auctioneer introduced her design, praising its craftsmanship. Cameras flashed, and for a moment her hand brushed his. Accidental, maybe? But when the bidding began, Adrian noticed something. Every time a new bid was called, her eyes scanned the room, landing on one particular man at the far table, tall, tanned, with a predatory smile. He lifted his champagne glass toward her in a slow, mocking toast. Adrian's chest tightened. Who is that? Selena's gaze didn't move. The reason I'm here tonight. The man raised his paddle again and the price soared. Adrian studied her profile, the set of her jaw, the way her hand gripped her clutch just a little too tightly. Selena, he said low enough for only her to hear, what are you planning? Her lips curved, but it wasn't a smile. Something you'll either hate me for, or thank me for. The auctioneer's gavel came down. The man at the far table had won. He rose, taking deliberate steps toward the stage where Selena now stood, ready to greet him. Adrian felt the old instincts rise, the ones that had made him ruthless in business and dangerous in boardrooms. If the man touched her, he wasn't sure what he'd do. The man moved through the crowd with the kind of slow confidence that drew attention without asking for it. His tuxedo was perfectly tailored, his dark hair slicked back with just enough silver at the temples to suggest power earned over decades. People stepped aside for him without thinking, the way pedestrians do for an oncoming car they know won't stop. Selena didn't move. Her chin stayed high, her expression poised, but Adrian could see it, the flicker in her eyes, the subtle tightening of her grip on her clutch. Selena. The man's voice was low and deliberate, meant for her but loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. It's been far too long. She extended her hand. Graham. He took it, his thumb brushing over her knuckles in a way that felt more like possession than greeting. Adrian's jaw locked. I see you've brought the house something worth fighting for tonight, Graham said, nodding toward the black gown on the mannequin. Though I admit I was bidding for more than just the dress. His gaze slid over her with the casual arrogance of a man used to owning whatever caught his eye. Selena's lips curved into a polite smile. Then I hope you're not disappointed. Oh, I rarely am. He leaned closer. especially when I win. Adrian stepped forward before he realized he was moving. And what exactly do you think you've won? Graham turned, his smile sharpening. Adrian Pierce. I'd heard you were still hovering in certain circles. Some circles are worth staying in, Adrian replied evenly, though his voice carried an edge. Selina glanced between them, sensing the shift in the air. Gentlemen, this isn't the place. Oh, I think it's exactly the place, Graham interrupted. After all, everyone here knows I've just secured the most valuable item in the room. You bought a dress, Graham? Adrian said, his tone ice. Graham's eyes glittered. We both know I wasn't talking about the dress. The crowd around them had gone quiet, sensing something more interesting than champagne and small talk was unfolding. Selina's hand tightened on her clutch until Adrian thought it might snap in two. She gave Graham a look that could have frozen the champagne in his glass. If you'll excuse me, she said, stepping away. But Graham's hand shot out, catching her wrist, not roughly but firmly enough to stop her. Selina, we're not finished. Adrian's vision narrowed. His hand closed around Graham's forearm, his voice low but lethal. Let her go. For a moment no one moved. The ballroom's golden light seemed to sharpen, the music faltering as the quartet sensed the tension. Graham released her, slow and deliberate as if granting permission. Selina stepped back, her breath unsteady but her face unreadable. Enjoy your evening, Pierce, Graham said with a smirk before turning toward the stage to collect his prize. Selina didn't move until he was gone. Then, without looking at Adrian, she said, You have no idea what you've just walked into. Adrian caught her arm gently, steering her toward the edge of the ballroom where the noise dulled. Then tell me. She shook her head. Not here. Not yet. Selina. Her gaze finally met his, and for a second he saw it, fear, sharp and real, flickering beneath her composure. If you really want to help me, Adrian, you'll stay close tonight. And you won't ask why. He didn't like it. He didn't like her silence, the way her eyes kept scanning the room as if expecting something worse to happen. But he'd always trusted her instincts, even when they clashed with his. Somewhere near the stage, Graham's voice carried over the mic as he accepted his prize. Selina's hand brushed Adrian's, just enough for him to feel the tremor in her fingers. Whatever this was, it was far from over. Dinner ended with the clinking of crystal and polite applause for the night's top donors. The MC thanked the guests once more, and waiters began clearing plates as the band transitioned into a soft, jazzy melody for the after-dinner mingling. Selina pushed her chair back before Graham could rise. She slipped from the table without a word, weaving through the crowd toward the side exit that led to the terrace. Adrian followed, ignoring the murmurs from people he passed. The terrace was quieter, the air crisp with the scent of rain on marble. String lights glowed along the balustrade, casting warm pools of light. Selina stood near the edge, her back to him, hands resting on the stone railing. You shouldn't have followed me, she said without turning. I've never been good at that, he replied, stopping a few feet behind her. For a moment, they listened to the muffled sounds of the gala through the glass doors. Then he asked, Who is he to you? She exhaled slowly. Graham Calloway. He's old money, the kind that doesn't get made, it gets inherited. The kind that buys people instead of things. That much I figured, Adrian said. But what does he want from you? Her grip on the railing tightened. 2 years ago, I was in Paris for a design showcase. It was my first big break. Graham was one of the featured patrons. I didn't know who he was at first. He offered to sponsor my work, fund my first full line. Said all the right things. And by the end of that week, I realized the sponsorship came with strings. The kind that tighten until you can't breathe. Adrian stepped closer. What kind of strings? She turned then, her eyes darker than he remembered. He wanted me, exclusively. As his designer. As his companion. When I refused, he pulled his funding. Every connection I'd made that week vanished overnight. My work was blacklisted in half of Europe. Adrian's jaw tightened. And you think he's here to try again? No, her voice was sharper now. I think he's here to finish what he started. Lightning flickered faintly over the city skyline. I came tonight because one of my friends on the inside told me Graham was bidding for the dress. That dress is the key to getting my name back into the market. It's also bait. Bait? I wanted him to buy it. I wanted him to think he'd won something so I could make him show his hand. But you being here complicates things. Adrian stepped into her space, his voice low. If you think I'm walking away, you don't remember me at all. She held his gaze for a long beat, then looked past him toward the glass doors. Graham stood inside, watching them from the edge of the ballroom, a slow smile spreading across his face. Selena's voice dropped to a whisper. It's starting. They returned inside together, though neither said a word. The ballroom had shifted again. Couples swayed on the dance floor, champagne glasses clinked, and a soft golden haze from the chandeliers made everything feel too warm, too intimate. Adrian noticed Graham at the far end of the room, speaking to the MC with one hand in his pocket, the other holding his champagne flute like a prop in a play he was directing. Selena's eyes tracked him for a moment before she looked up at Adrian. We can't make it obvious, she murmured. Make what obvious? That we're aligned, she said, searching for the right word. If he thinks you're here for me, he'll find a way to use it. Adrian's lips curved faintly. Maybe I want him to think that. Her brows drew together. This isn't a game, Adrian. Then why do you look like you've been playing one since the night began? She didn't answer and instead let her gaze sweep over the crowd. Dance with me. He blinked. Now. Yes, he's watching. If I'm going to distract him long enough to talk to a contact in the East Wing, I need him thinking I'm otherwise occupied. Adrian offered his hand, and she took it without hesitation. The warmth of her palm against his sent an old ache humming through him. They stepped onto the dance floor just as the quartet began a slow, smoky rendition of a jazz standard. Adrian's hand settled at the small of her back, the emerald silk smooth beneath his fingers. Selena moved easily with him, her body fitting against his as though it had been made for it. You still remember, she said softly, how to dance, how to hold me like this. He met her eyes. Some things don't fade. For a few minutes, the rest of the room disappeared. Their steps matched perfectly, their breath rising and falling in unison. He felt the tension in her shoulders ease, just slightly, as though for the first time all night, she'd let herself be close without bracing for impact. Selena, he began, back then, if I'd known what happened in Paris. You couldn't have stopped him, she said quickly. He was already pulling strings before I even saw it happening. Maybe not. But I would have been there. Her gaze softened, and for the first time that evening, the sharp edge in her eyes dulled. I know. The song ended, but Adrian didn't let go right away. He leaned down, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Whatever game you think you have to play with him, you don't have to play it alone. Before she could respond, a shadow fell over them. Graham. Beautiful, he said, his smile too precise to be genuine. I didn't know you two still had such chemistry. Selena stepped back, the mask sliding back into place. We were just catching up. Oh, I hope you'll do more than that, Graham said smoothly. I have a private lounge upstairs. Perhaps the three of us can talk, without all these eyes and ears. Adrian glanced at Selena. She didn't look at him, but the faintest shake of her head told him everything. This was a trap. Still she smiled at Graham. Lead the way. The moment they stepped back into the ballroom, Adrian felt the temperature change. Or maybe it wasn't the air. Maybe it was the way eyes followed Selena as she moved, the way the emerald green gown drew the light like she was the centerpiece of the night. Somewhere in the sea of faces, Graham Calloway stood like a captain surveying his ship. His gaze slid over the guests until it landed on Selena, and lingered there as if the rest of the room had dissolved. Selena's posture shifted subtly. She didn't hunch or shrink back, she never would, but Adrian noticed the way her shoulders set and her chin tilted upward. It was the kind of defiance he recognized from years ago, the kind that came out when she was bracing herself for a fight. Eyes forward, she murmured, not looking at him. Why? Because I don't want him knowing you're paying attention to him. Adrian's jaw tightened. What if I want him to know? Her gaze flicked up to his, a warning glinting there. This isn't about your ego. Who said it was? He replied, though the edge in his tone said otherwise. Before the tension could tighten further, she changed the subject entirely. Dance with me. The words caught him off guard. Now. Yes. He's watching and I need him to think I'm otherwise engaged. Adrian raised a brow. You could just sit down and pretend to be busy. That wouldn't distract him, she said simply. But this will. She didn't wait for him to argue. She just extended her hand, the small diamonds at her wrist catching the chandelier light. Against his better judgment he took it. The quartet began a slow number, strings and piano weaving together in a warm, steady rhythm. Adrian's palm found the curve of her back, that familiar fit, that quiet electricity. She smelled faintly of jasmine and something deeper he couldn't name, something that had haunted him long after she'd walked out of his life. You still remember how, she said, a small smile touching her lips. How to dance. How to hold me like this. He met her eyes. Some things don't fade. Their bodies moved in unison like they had 100 times before, at boardroom galas, charity dinners, even that one night on the balcony in Madrid when there had been no one watching but the moon. The memory slid into his mind unbidden, and from the way her lashes lowered, he wondered if she was remembering it too. For a brief, fragile moment, the world narrowed to the two of them. He could almost believe they were just another couple dancing under the glow of the chandeliers, untouched by the shadows at the edges of the room. Almost. The music began to fade, the quartet drawing out the last note until it dissolved into polite applause. Adrian didn't let go immediately. His hand lingered against her back, a silent anchor he wasn't ready to release. "Selina," he began, but her gaze had already shifted past his shoulder. Graham was approaching, a champagne flute in one hand and the kind of smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Beautiful," Graham said smoothly, his voice carrying just enough to draw a few nearby glances. "I didn't realize you two still had such chemistry." Selina stepped back just enough to put space between herself and Adrian. "We were catching up." "Oh, I hope you'll do more than that," Graham said, his smile sharpening. "I have a private lounge upstairs. More privacy, fewer interruptions. Perhaps the three of us can talk." Adrian's instinct was immediate. Not interested. But Selina cut him a glance, quick, almost imperceptible, that stopped him. It was the same look she used to give him in tense boardroom negotiations, the one that said, "Follow my lead even if you hate it." "Lead the way," she said to Graham. Graham's smile widened in satisfaction, as though this had been his plan from the moment the auction ended. "Excellent." They fell into step behind him. The crowd swallowed them for a moment, and Adrian leaned close enough for only her to hear. "This is a mistake." "Maybe," she murmured. "Or maybe it's the only way to end this." Up ahead, Graham glanced back at them over his shoulder, and Adrian realized this wasn't just about business or power. Whatever game Graham was playing, Selina was the prize. And Adrian wasn't about to let him win. The private lounge was quieter than the ballroom but no less decadent. Deep leather armchairs formed small clusters around low tables, each set with crystal decanters of amber liquor. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline, where rain had begun tracing silver lines down the glass. Graham strolled in like the room belonged to him. In truth, Adrian suspected it probably did. "Sit," Graham said, gesturing to a curved leather sofa near the windows. Adrian didn't move. "We'll stand." Selina brushed past him and took a seat, her choice or her strategy Adrian couldn't tell. He stayed standing, positioning himself between her and Graham without making it obvious. "You've changed," Graham said to Selina, pouring himself a drink. The liquid caught the light, glowing like gold. "More self-assured. I remember when you still thought the world played fair." Selina's expression didn't flinch. "I remember when you still thought you could buy everything you wanted." Graham chuckled, low and amused. "Oh, I still can. Some things just cost more than others." His eyes slid to Adrian. "And some things require removing obstacles." Adrian stepped forward. "You mean me?" "If the shoe fits," Graham said, swirling his drink. "Tell me, Mr. Pierce, how does it feel to be the man standing in the way of inevitability?" Adrian's voice stayed even. "Depends on whether inevitability knows how to fight back." The tension between them thickened, an invisible rope pulling tighter with every word. Selina broke it first. "Why did you buy the dress, Graham?" He turned to her, his smile sharpening. "Because it's mine. Just like you should be." Her fingers tightened in her lap, but she didn't look away. "I'm not a thing you can own." "You always were," he said softly. "Even when you didn't know it." Adrian's patience snapped. He stepped fully between them now. "You need to walk away from her. Tonight." Graham sipped his drink like he had all the time in the world. "You think she's here for you? You think she came to this gala for a reunion?" Adrian didn't answer, but his silence was answer enough. Graham leaned back, enjoying himself. "She came here for me, Pierce. She's been circling me all night, dangling herself just close enough to keep my attention. She's good at it. Always was." Adrian turned to Selina. "Tell me he's lying." Selina's eyes locked on his, and for the briefest second, something flickered there. Regret? Strategy? Then she looked away. "This isn't your fight, Adrian." The words hit harder than Graham's smug grin. "Selina." Adrian didn't go back into the ballroom right away. Instead, he slipped down a side corridor and into one of the quiet service hallways. The noise of the gala was muffled here, the air cooler, tinged with the faint scent of polished wood and fresh linens. He braced his hands against the wall, forcing his breath to steady. Her words replayed in his head. This isn't your fight. I can handle this. It wasn't just the dismissal. It was the look in her eyes before she said it. Cold, guarded, but not empty. No, he'd seen the flicker there. And he knew Selena well enough to recognize when she was lying to protect someone. The problem was he wasn't sure if that someone was herself, or him. Down the hall, a pair of waiters passed with trays stacked high with fresh champagne glasses. Adrian straightened, adjusting his cuffs, and tried to shove the knot in his chest aside. He could walk out now, leave her to deal with Graham, tell himself it wasn't his problem. But every instinct screamed that walking away wasn't an option. Not for him. Not with her. Upstairs, in the private lounge, Graham had settled back into the sofa, his drink in one hand, his other arm draped casually along the backrest, the picture of relaxed arrogance. Selena sat angled toward the window, giving herself just enough space to breathe. She could still feel the echo of Adrian's presence in the room, and it gnawed at her, the way his eyes had searched hers before he left. You always did surround yourself with protectors, Graham said, breaking the silence. She didn't turn to look at him. Some people don't need to be bought to stand by me. Graham's laugh was quiet but sharp. And yet you sent him away. What? Afraid he'd see something you don't want him to? Selena finally faced him, her voice steady. Afraid you'd use him against me. You have a talent for turning everything into leverage. His smile didn't waver. And you have a talent for pretending you're not interested. Selena let the silence hang just long enough for him to think she might answer. Then she leaned forward slightly. You wanted me upstairs. You have me. Say what you came to say. For the first time that night, Graham's expression shifted, just barely. I want you back, Selena. And if that means tearing down everyone around you until you have no one left to run to, I'll do it. She swallowed the spike of anger and fear, masking it under a calm she didn't entirely feel. Then I guess I should make sure you're the one who ends up with nothing. When she looked away again, her fingers slipped into the pocket of her gown, brushing against her phone. Without glancing down, she unlocked it by touch and tapped a single message, just 3 words, before sliding it back. Downstairs, Adrian's phone buzzed. It was from her. Don't leave yet. Go back downstairs, she said, her tone icy now. I can handle this. Adrian stared at her, searching for the woman he'd been dancing with less than an hour ago. But all he found was a wall he couldn't climb. Graham's smile widened, feeding off the crack between them. You heard her. Adrian turned and walked out before he did something that would ruin more than the evening. Behind him, the lounge door closed with a soft click, cutting him off from whatever game Selena was still playing, and from the truth she clearly wasn't ready to share. Somewhere in the ballroom below, the music played on, oblivious to the fact that upstairs, the strings between the 3 of them had just snapped. Adrian read the message twice, his pulse kicking up. Don't leave yet. He slipped his phone into his pocket and made his way toward the service staircase that led back to the upper floors. Years of navigating high-stakes events had taught him how to move without drawing notice. But tonight, it wasn't strategy that kept him quiet. It was the fear that if he made the wrong move, he'd lose her again. The private lounge door was still closed when he reached it. He pressed close to the wall just beside it, close enough to hear voices through the wood. Think you're untouchable, Graham? Selena's voice was low but sharp. I know I am, Graham replied, all smug certainty. And I'm giving you a chance to be untouchable again, with me. I can restore your career, your name. I can make people forget you ever disappeared from the scene. And all I'd have to do is disappear into you again, she said bitterly. That's one way to put it. There was a pause, then the faint sound of liquid being poured. Adrian's hands curled into fists. Selena spoke again, and this time there was steel in her tone. You always underestimate me. Tonight you'll regret that. Adrian didn't wait. He pushed the door open. Graham turned in his seat, annoyance flashing across his face. Pierce, I believe we were having a private. This is over, Adrian cut in, striding to Selena's side. Whatever you think you're holding over her, it dies tonight. Graham's smirk returned. You can't touch me. Selena rose slowly, her phone already in her hand. Maybe he can't. But the board of your family's company might be interested in hearing the recording I've been making since we stepped in here. For the first time all evening, Graham's composure cracked. You. Oh, and one more thing, she added, stepping closer. That dress you bought? It's being couriered to an exhibit downtown, as a donation in your name, with all proceeds going to a foundation for independent designers. They'll be honoring you publicly in about, she glanced at Adrian's watch. 30 minutes. Congratulations. Graham's jaw clenched, but the fight had left his eyes. You'll regret crossing me. Selena smiled, the kind of smile that didn't need a single word to say never again. Adrian placed a steadying hand at her back, guiding her toward the door. They didn't look back. Outside the lounge, the noise of the gala washed over them. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Adrian said quietly, "You could have told me. I couldn't risk you blowing the plan," she admitted. "I needed to know if I could still do this on my own." He studied her, then smiled faintly. "And?" Her gaze softened. "Turns out I don't want to." They made their way to the exit, stepping into the cool night air. A light drizzle still fell, catching the glow of the street lamps. Adrian offered his jacket and she didn't refuse. As they walked toward the waiting car, he glanced at her. "So, dinner? No auctions, no billionaires, just us." She laughed, the tension finally breaking. "Just us." The driver opened the door, and as they slid in, Adrian realized something. For all the years they'd been apart, all the walls they'd built, he'd never stopped wanting to be exactly here. And from the way she was looking at him now, she hadn't either. The ride back to her apartment was quiet, but it wasn't the same heavy silence from earlier in the night. It was warm, expectant. The kind of quiet where two people didn't need to fill the space because the connection between them did it for them. City lights streaked across the car windows, painting Selena's face in shifting golds and blues. Adrian couldn't help but watch her, and when she caught him, she smiled, not the careful, polite smile she'd worn in the ballroom, but something softer. Something that belonged only to him. When they reached her building, the driver stepped out to open the door, but Adrian didn't move right away. "You sure you want to end the night here?" he asked, a playful note under the question. Selena tilted her head. "Depends. What are you suggesting?" He grinned. "That maybe we keep talking. Over dinner tomorrow. And the day after that. And maybe see where it goes from there." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she leaned forward, closing the small distance between them until her lips brushed his cheek, slow enough to make him feel it all the way to his chest. "I think," she said softly, "it's already going somewhere." They stepped out together. At the entrance, she turned and looked at him under the glow of the awning lights. "Thank you," she murmured. "For what?" "For not walking away when I gave you every reason to." Adrian reached for her hand, pressing a light kiss against her knuckles. "Not walking away from you was the easiest choice I've ever made." And with that, she disappeared into the elevator, glancing back only once, enough for him to know that no matter how complicated the past had been, the future might just be theirs to write. Some say the past never truly lets go, but sometimes, it comes back not to haunt you, but to hand you a second chance. If you were in Selena's place, would you have trusted Adrian again, or walked away for good? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow brings another story of love, redemption, and the unexpected.